Welcome to Something to Offer. I'm Dawntoya Thomason, and I'm really excited about today's episode because we're talking about something that I don't do very well, and that is wellness. What is wellness? Is it something big that you have to do? Is it something small? Is it achievable? Is it like working out 5 times a week and eating like celery? Or is it, mental, sexual, emotional, physical wellness? And I think it's a lot of things, but I don't know how to incorporate it into my life. But my guest does. She's actually a very close friend of mine. Her name is Danielle Anderson. And on episode 1, I talked about how we need to Beyonce the shit out of our lives. And Danielle has Danielle the shit out of her life. And especially in quarantine. At the beginning of quarantine, I was like in a fetal position in a closet crying. Meanwhile, Danielle was finishing up 200 hours and becoming a yoga and fitness instructor. She also has completed hours in becoming a doula and has just really dived into all things wellness and health. And it is so inspiring. And I literally as much as she's like my best friend, every time she told me about her achievements, I was like, girl, what are you doing in this quarantine that I don't understand? How is this like propelling you forward? And that's just who she is, and it's amazing and it's inspiring. And so I wanted her to come talk about that. She talks a little bit about her journey, how it started from grief. Danielle lost her 1-year-old son several years ago, and it was actually the beginning of that process and caring for a surprise pregnancy after that loss of her son that started the wellness journey, and how she was able to navigate that through difficult grief and eventually years later arrive to where she is today after batting down I don't fit the image, and all these kind of insecurities that go through our heads. And so I found this very helpful. I'm an all or nothing personality. I'm either going to eat all the good things and work out really hard, or I'm going to eat all the brownies and sit on the couch and try not to get my heart rate up. But Danielle is the friend that I call all the time because she is truly the backbone of my concept of something to offer. She is that friend that I call and go, okay, take me off the all or nothing road. What can you offer me? Tell me about mental health. Tell me about your wellness journey and how you've been so successful in this. And so I wanted her to share that with all of us. Y'all heard me talking last episode about my parent struggle, homeschooling, and she does all the things. She's a full-time homeschool mom. She's homeschooled as long as I have. Her oldest son is now in regular school, but she does it all and she still takes care of herself. So we're going to talk about self-care and how that should not be a dirty word, how women should not feel guilty for that. And she's just going to give us all the good, healthy perspective. And so that's why I have her here, because I need it. I'm still tired from last week. Remember I told y'all I wasn't joking. So I have her here and it's going to be awesome. So I hope you enjoy it and I hope you learn a lot from it. So let's get into it. Okay, so as I said, my guest today is Danielle Anderson. So here's a fun thing. When I first started Something to Offer, I talked about how I had these friends and a husband who just said things to me that altered my life, changed the course of my life. And Danielle would be in the top 5 of people. I'm not going to list the top 5 just in case you think you're in the top 5 and your name doesn't get called. But she really is in the top 5 of people that I call to offer me something.
Bless you.
You're the only person I talk to on the phone. It's really difficult as a mother to get on the phone. So
that is very true.
That's so true.
I don't talk to many people on the phone.
And every time we're on the phone,
children are in the background.
It's crazy. And we both have an understanding you're going to be muted 72 times.
Yes.
But we will press on towards the goal.
That's right.
So that's why I call her. But she really is that friend that I had in mind when I started this podcast. So I'm really excited to have her here because I feel like she has a lot to offer. And the biggest thing that we're going to have a conversation about wellness today. But first I want to start with why I wanted to have Danielle as the first guest on the podcast, because I started this up during quarantine and it was really hard to start because of 1,000 things. I won't get into all of those things. You know all the details of how hard it was to start. But one of the biggest things was just trying to figure out how to do this and have people over, all this stuff during quarantine, all the no's, all the gates and all that stuff. But during quarantine, Danielle the shit out of her life. And I'm going to reference that initial podcast that I started with about how we all should just Beyonce the shit out of our lives. And Danielle really did that during quarantine. I felt like every time I talked to you, I was like, oh, it's quarantine. I'm sad. My life's over. And you were like, well, I got a new master's degree. I got my doctorate. Not exactly, but you accomplished a lot of things. So real quick, tell the people, it doesn't have to be real quick, but tell the people some of the things that you accomplished during quarantine.
Yeah, I took a lot of classes in the beginning of quarantine, which had always been a goal. So I was teaching fitness classes at the Y, and they had to lay all their part-time staff off because of COVID. So my sister is actually the one that suggested maybe you should look into teaching virtual fitness classes. Okay. So I took a course about virtual fitness classes. Okay. So that was like a 9-session class. I bought and took that. And then like a few weeks later, I think I just saw on Instagram there was like a Black Yoga Magazine, like 200-hour yoga training
I don't think I knew that.
certification course. And I'd always wanted to take one. It's like, well, gonna add that. So then I took a 200.
I was just like crying and looking at the bank account.
So then I took a 200-hour because it was so cheap in comparison to like how much those 200-hour classes would normally cost. It would have been thousands of dollars. Okay. And it was like maybe $300 or something. So I was like, gonna get that. And then I'd always wanted to take a doula course. So I took a doula course, which was like, I think a 7 or 8 week class as well. And so I think those are.
And then how's that going? Because I know you finished the course.
Yeah, I finished the course. I just need to finish writing 2 papers and then I'll be completely done. But I've completed.
Who's trying to write? Like, you're getting involved in things where there's homework during quarantine. And I'm just like, I can't do it. Like, I want to say that I'm going to do it, but I can't do it.
Yeah, I wrote my first papers that I had ever written, I think, since college, actually in the yoga course, because I had to write 2 papers for that as well.
Okay, so maybe let me take it back. So you're married, you have children, and you've stayed at home, and you homeschool full time. Before COVID, you homeschooled since you've had your children. And before that, you were, tell me about your job, tell me about your life Pre-children. So I was an IT consultant for Accenture, a Fortune 500 company. So I used to be a business traveler. So I would catch a flight Monday morning, go out to my client site, do my work, and then catch a flight Thursday night and fly home. And so you went from that to what?
I went from that to a stay-at-home homeschool mom who at some point realized this can't be all that I am. So I don't know. When my youngest was 2, I had a goal to start teaching fitness classes.
Okay, so see, really good friends. I don't think I realized that because it's so funny. The only fitness I remember the first time you and I ever worked out together. You don't remember this, do you?
I probably don't. When was it?
We were in Denton for some reason in Texas, and we were running sprints.
I remember this because I couldn't keep up.
Well, this is what's funny now because she couldn't keep up with me, and now I'm like, she's got like fitness, certificates, and I'm just out here try not to eat Chick-fil-A every day. The roles have totally reversed. But so you had like this, and I would never shade. I am the homeschool 100% mom. So in what the world would say is a big life, a business life, you got hotel points and travel and all that stuff. And then you go from like that to 100% stay at home, homeschool. But when your first son's 2, you literally say, why did you say I didn't even know you had this goal. Why was it fitness? Because you went from like IT.
I went from IT to homeschool, stay-at-home homeschool mom. And I always enjoyed working out. So it was in college. Like I learned about yoga and Pilates and just really enjoyed weightlifting. And it was just really fun. And people used to tell me then, you should teach classes. And I was like, no, I don't have a 6-pack. I don't have like the body for what I thought a fitness instructor was supposed to look like. Okay. So I was always just kind of held back by insecurity. So, and then, I had 4 babies in 6 years. So I have like the postpartum body. I was so tired. My body was so tired. But it actually was in that postpartum season. Like I had weaned Kai, who was my youngest. I think he was about to be 2, right before we did the Mossy challenge. This is like 2-7.
Shout out to Mossy Arias. She's the only reason why I've ever been in shape.
Yes, right? It was incredible. You invited me to do that.
Yes.
So that's
Mossy owes me some coins.
Yes, you got a lot of people to do that program.
A lot of people into that. Yeah.
It was in that year. So that was 2017. There was something in me that was like, I'm not just a stay-at-home homeschool mom.
Yeah.
There was something that clicked. I think I was just maybe tired or something, or I feel like I was losing my identity. I think I'm getting lost. What do I want to do? Well, Danielle, you like fitness. Take the course. So I like bought this course to get certified as a national fitness instructor back then.
Yeah. So that was all the way back then. Okay. So I did not.
Yeah.
I think like my
you
brain
knew that because I was teaching
this.
at the Y.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. So my brain like knows this, but it's hard to put it together to see the trajectory that you're on right now. And so I do want to speak to like the fact that you said I didn't have the body type. You have this insecurity. So let's talk a little bit about that because I think that's important. What is your perceived idea of what the body type is to be a fitness instructor, and what do you know now that you didn't know then?
I think initially it was like 6-pack, a lower percent body fat than I have, and just more visible muscles, I think.
Okay.
So I've always been strong. Like I feel like I'm a person that can easily gain muscle and will be strong. I'm probably I might look bigger than you perhaps, but because of that, like I wouldn't be like pow.
Yeah.
It just felt like, oh, she's just a woman of size that is strong, which to me didn't resonate to like fitness instructor.
Right.
It just So I just held that insecurity of like, well, I don't meet the requirements for the body of a fitness teacher. Someone in the
like
fitness
Mossy
realm.
is like
I'm not Mossy.
Nobody's Mossy but Mossy. So that you don't have that, but you still like I actually over the years you have like you had babies for so long, but you've leaned out, but still you don't have that quote unquote fitness instructor body, which is turns out it's a myth. That's not a real thing.
Exactly.
But what gave you the confidence to say that doesn't matter? Like what crossed over?
Friends. I think friends and family like speaking life into me, going, Danielle, you're good at this. You should do it. And then some people would say sometimes like the person that has the body that's not the perfect 6-pack is even more relatable. And some people might be drawn to that person more. I was like, oh, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
And so then I think when I started teaching at the Y, it just felt good to like, oh, I'm just a regular person, a mom of 4 kids who is in here trying to stay healthy. Yeah. The goal, and then I think in my mind, the goal changed from a particular aesthetic just to like, I just want to be strong. I want to be healthy. I want to be able to like to move my body, play with my kids. And once I started to shift and I did some just different work in my own personal insecurities, I started to just feel more free in what God had given me. I was like, I'm going to have broad shoulders. I'm never going to have a thigh gap. I have knock knees.
I still don't really get the thigh gap.
I didn't even know it was a thing until
I didn't know it was a thing until a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was a possibility.
So I'm like, you want the thigh gap?
No.
You don't.
I don't, but I think a lot of
me. Who wants? What is? I don't explain the thigh gap. I know I keep up on like the socials. You know what I'm saying? I really don't understand.
It's just where people's thighs at the top don't touch. There's a gap. There's a gap there.
So you want that?
No. No.
Not you, but the people.
I feel like that was something that like thin, in shape people. Had.
Now this is no shade. Y'all know I love all the people, but are these white women or just women? All women.
So most of the time it was white women.
Okay.
So
I've never heard of this until like a couple years ago.
No, my standard of beauty. Like I grew up in the suburbs, like around mostly white people. So like I feel like my perspective was always kind of shifted towards like the beauty standards of white women.
Okay, got it.
And that's where I learned about the thigh gap was with white women.
Okay.
But then looking at pictures of black women, not that black women don't have thigh gaps.
Yeah.
But many black women don't have thigh gaps.
Yeah, I don't know. I probably do, sadly. I don't know. I just never, I'm like, when did this become a thing? And why do people keep saying that? And why am I not up on the thing?
I'm grateful for my non-thigh gap.
Good. Yeah. Thick thighs save lives. They really do.
Like the meme with like, you drop your phone on the toilet, like my thick thigh, I got you.
See, it all works together. You know what I'm saying? So, okay, so you get past that. And I think that's just another thing to speak to anybody kind of watching this who thinks that they can't do something because of somebody's standard of beauty, somebody's standard of athleticism. Like, that's just not true.
Right.
And what's interesting, I think, a better way to look at... So it's a twofold thing. A better way to look at this is one, this engineer, you have an engineering brain, you have like a work ethic, you have like this good brain. And even though your body didn't match this picture, your brain, I'm like, people are scared to work out with you. You know what I mean? Like we have friends that she trains and it's like, we know Danielle's going to kill us is what the consensus is with these people. I do not work out with Danielle. Yes. That is mostly on purpose. She probably thinks that I'm just busy.
I know.
But I also I'm a little competitive. So I'm sure as out of shape as I am, if I get over there,
come on. That's
I'll
all
act
the more
like
reason.
it's fine. Even though I'll be dead inside. But my point is, like, she was created with that brain. So despite whatever her body looked like, she can get you where you need to be. So I just think that's interesting how we keep making the image the most important thing when that's clearly not the most important thing. Your brain is on top of your image. Your brain is built like this. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that. But then secondarily, what you really said about, hey, I just want to be able to play with my kids. I wanted to, you have this goal of being mobile.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I have a goal to be mobile when I'm 80, to be able to walk without assistance. Okay. So I want to be able to, I don't want to use a cane. I want to be able to still be flexible and get on the floor, roll around with my grandkids when I'm 80. Yes.
So what's interesting is, this conversation, to me, that is what wellness is. Wellness is not just having a six-pack. It's not about working out crazy 5 days a week, eating celery all day. Wellness really, and I wish I had notes, but wellness really is it has 8 parts, and I'm sure you
depending
know
on
whoever says this.
Sure.
But even if we don't go all 8, it's not just physical.
No.
It's mental, it's emotional, it's financial. Do you have any more?
Yes, there's spiritual. Lots. There's spiritual, there's intellectual, you could say social, relational, sexual. Yeah.
So wellness, I think so I know that I want this podcast to be for any and everybody, men and women, but I know that a lot of women, especially of my age with kids, listen to this. And this is a hard season in life to attack everything.
Sure.
And so I really want to speak to, and I want you to speak to, this idea that I really struggle with this. And as my something to offer friend, I am what they call, I believe that I am all or nothing. Now, I'm trying not to just put these labels on myself, but I do wrestle with that. It's either I go hard or I do nothing. And I'm starting to learn that wellness is not working out 5 days a week, eating perfectly all those days, being visibly fit at the end of it, but slowly doing, to say that you want to be mobile at 80, that's achievable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless a bus hits you, that's achievable, right? Or to roll around with your kids now, that wellness is it's like a wholeness that you're speaking about, not just this. So what would you say to moms with kids our age who just I cannot do another thing?
Yeah. Another fitness thing or just
me, sometimes I'm okay, I'm trying to do a podcast, I'm trying to homeschool my kids, I'm trying to be a good wife, I'm trying to hang out with my friends, and working out 5 days a week sounds like whatever. But lately I'm but you can eat some vegetables. You really can get in the kitchen. So what is it like to introduce wellness into your life?
I think it starts with possibly reframing the wellness thing, and rather than seeing it as another thing I have to do, almost looking at, I picked this up, I think from a Girl Trek podcast years ago, but looking at it as survival, literally. And we hear the term self-care in our culture, but it really is, I want to take care of myself so I can be alive. And because if I'm not alive, I can't help y'all. I can't.
But I want to be fine more than I want to be alive some days. Sorry,
that's fair.
Thank you for validating. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a level of seeing it as that, seeing it. We've heard the phrase, you can't give what you don't have. You can't pour out from an empty cup. Put your mask on first. There's all these statements.
Say that more of that.
Put your mask on first. Yeah, you hear it on the airplanes. They'll tell you adults, please, put your mask on first before assisting children next to you. Yeah. And when you think about it, it's true. If I cannot breathe, I can't help my children. So there is a level of reframing the wellness, the self-care into, if I can't breathe, I can't help y'all. Yeah. So I've got to do some stuff for me, for my care, for my survival, for my wellness. Yes, for myself, but so that I can be whatever I'm supposed to be for y'all. Yeah. Particularly my little people at home.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's interesting about that is, one, I immediately cringe. And that's so true, the whole mask thing. Yeah. But every time the flight attendant says that, I'm I'm totally putting my toddler's mask on first. I think that every single time, unless I'm by myself or I'm with my husband, I'm for sure I'm not doing that. Now, maybe if the cabin pressure drops, I'll quickly be yo, snap, I can't breathe. Right. You know what I mean? But that, as a mom sometimes, and especially from different backgrounds, I really think I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
and you can't make me. Help me.
Because it feels selfish sometimes. Do you think? Like, if it feels selfish to put your mask on first?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the term of self-care, you said you used to struggle with this. And I know, especially in Christian culture, and I'm kind of away from this, but mentally I'm away from it, but my hands are still gripped around it. That self-care is selfish.
Yeah. Yes, and I used to think that. I remember like being in church services and people talking about self-care, because at the time self-care was like, it's a spa day. It's you spending all this money and taking yourself away from your family for all this time, which just, and it was said with this negative connotation. And then over time I realized, no, self-care could literally be me just stopping for 2 minutes and breathing deeply. Saying a prayer or something. Like, it doesn't have to be this fancy, luxurious, I'm leaving my home. I can take care of myself in my home. Yeah. So I think once I started to reframe it from this, like, you have to be super wealthy to participate in self-care, I started to see it as way more accessible and way more needed, especially to those who don't have the money to pay for the spa, to pay for those luxury things.
Okay. So I am going to ask you about some of your self-care, but first I want to talk about the start of your self-care journey. So tell me, it's funny, I actually didn't realize that it actually started with your first child when you were 2, just the fitness thing. But let's talk about when you thought, man, I got to get this right.
Yeah, I mean, it started in grief. So you know our story. We lost a
lot of people don't know, but
in 2013 we lost unexpectedly our 1-year-old son Chase. So we just hit the 8-year anniversary of that. And it was grief, but really being pregnant in grief. So I found out not even a month into losing Chase that I was pregnant again with what we found out later was our 3rd son. And my midwife, I think, is the one who told me, like, okay, you know, your sadness is going to mark this child. So as much as you can, Danielle, like, when you feel sad, let yourself cry. When you know, let that stuff move through your body, because she was like, because stuffing it's not going to help you and it's not going to help the baby. So then that's what I did. I was like, okay, I'm going to try to like feel my feelings. And when it came to thoughts, somewhere along the lines in that season, I started to learn like everything was connected and affected everything else. So like my thoughts could affect my body, could affect my emotions, could affect my spirit. So then I just started this journey of, all right, let's try to deal with all these things. So I talked to you and a lot of other people. I remember calling it my, I called it like doing like a brain dump or something, where I would just constantly like vomit out to y'all. Like, here's what I'm thinking. Like, here's the things in my head. Like, oh, I'm telling myself that my son passed away because of X, Y, Z. And y'all would say, okay, that's not how God's voice sounds. That's not true. Let's, you know, bring you back to truth over here. Cause I didn't trust myself to be able to discern what was true from what was false, what was God's voice from what was not. So yeah, it was really being pregnant in the midst of grieving that kind of put me on this trajectory of, I got to take care of myself, like mind, body, soul. And really it was really prompted out of caring for the baby. Like, it really wasn't to like put your mask on first, Danielle. It was like, I want to try to take care of myself to give this little person a chance to not be so marked at like the DNA level by my sadness. Okay.
So that's what I was going to ask. When she said marked by grief, I was wondering if it was like, this will be like tough for you because you'll always be sad about this baby because of the one you just lost, or it'll be marked by grief internally. Like, what did she mean?
Was literally talking about like, I think internal DNA, like cellular memory stuff.
For you and the baby. Like the baby could come out and just have this. And this, we've talked about this, like with like, you think about women pregnant during slavery, like we kind of act like these things aren't connected, but it's like, it truly is connected that this baby can be affected by the trauma that happened, you know, during that time. And so that's more of what she was speaking to.
Yeah. And I didn't understand all those pieces then. I didn't understand the trauma and DNA and how stuff gets passed down. But yeah, from her telling me, even just giving me permission, when you need to cry, you need to cry. Don't stuff it. I mean, later on, years down the line, I've now picked up the words from like Dr. Caroline Leaf. Oh, I'm going to process, not suppress.
Okay.
But early on, it was just feel and cry and scream and do whatever you need to do. And it really was all for the baby.
And that made sense to you. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it did make sense to me. And I always say like that baby, his name is Callan. Had I not gotten pregnant with him, I think that my drug of choice would have been sugar. So I always think that I would have just eaten myself to death. Just out of the need to numb and not feel, out of that sadness. And I remember in that season, for the first, I have a tendency, I can tend towards self-righteousness. Okay. And so I remember I used to like judge people, like, why would y'all take drugs or drink alcohol to numb your emotions. And after losing Chase, I completely got it. I was like, oh, I get it.
Wow.
And so I was like, well, I don't want to drink. I don't want to do drugs. But I do remember like logically thinking, sugar.
I want to eat.
I want to eat.
And so you said you got pregnant with your second or third son a month later.
Not even. I found out less than a month. So, I mean, when
were you eating that sugar in between or no? You were? Okay, so you were doing it.
Well, I mean, eventually I got to a point, like at first I couldn't eat at all because I was just so sad. And I remember telling you, like, it was hard to chew in the early days of grief. But eventually I got to a point where I was just like sad and numb. And so I just started to like eat sugar. Yeah.
Okay. And then when you found out you were pregnant, was it the loss of one baby and saying, I need to protect this baby? Because, if you're leaning into something or addicted to something, because sometimes people that do drugs or alcohol, they just cannot stop because it's already in their DNA. Yeah. Maybe it wasn't that for you.
I don't think I was so far down the line yet where I couldn't choose something different. But I do remember getting to a point where it was, I have to make a choice. And in that season, I don't know. I think it was just fresh on my mind. Like, you can choose, kind of like God says, and I think Deuteronomy, you can choose life or you can choose death. And I remember when I found out I was pregnant, there was this like, you can choose life or you can choose death.
That's a gift. Because that really, that's a gift. And you know what is interesting about your grief story? And I don't like to say this because I don't know what this really means, but I feel like people grieve differently. But I feel like you made, by the grace of God, good choices in your grief.
I hope so.
I really feel like you did. I mean, I say that like 100% believing because I hear that. You can choose life or you can choose death. And I just know myself or certain people will go, this is all I have, God. I imagine you'll catch me. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the death right now. Yeah. Because it's healing in some ways to me.
And I think in my mind, that wasn't an option because I was pregnant.
Yeah. Okay.
Even though at first I didn't want that child. Like, I just had a baby. Like, I want my child back. But there was this, for whatever reason, I remember I kept going back to like, okay, you've written our story this way. I don't know why, but all right. And so I leaned into the choosing life.
Yeah. And so I know this about you, but just for anybody that might be struggling with something similar to this, were you able to receive that third child even in the grief of that second child?
Yeah.
You were.
I was.
Yeah.
It was hard because I thought that everything that I was going to do with that third child was going to trigger me and remind me of things I had done with Chase. And we were in counseling and just, I think, different things from counselors and people around that in that season, or maybe it's just prayers. I don't know, but that wasn't my experience. My experience was I get to experience this new child as this new little person. And you have an older brother who you won't meet on this side of life. But you're going to know about him. Yeah. And he has his middle name. He has Chase's middle name.
Did I know that? I don't know if I know that. Cal and Isaiah? I did not. I don't think I knew that. Yeah. All these CIAs. I like it. So, okay. So, and this is not what this is about, but I can't stop asking. I can't stop asking the questions because I think it's so helpful. I mean, grief it can stop you dead in your tracks. Yes. And there's different levels of grief, but this is like a severe. Yes. And this is, I hate to even say this, but I remember the day that I came to see you after Chase died, flying in there. And I remember, I don't know if I should have said it, but I remember saying, you're living my nightmare. I remember that. You remember me saying that? And I don't know why, maybe that sounds so terrible to say, but I almost wanted to resonate with like, I don't know what to do here. This is a nightmare. It is. And so for you to be like living that, that's why I keep saying God really sustains you by giving you the ability to push through and make these choices, because it's okay to make bad choices in a nightmare. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I just think that that for whatever reason, by the grace of God, I mean, obviously I know it wasn't easy for you, but you were able to push through. So I don't know. I feel like I would have had fear with the next baby. You're saying I get to experience this again. My struggle would have been, I'm afraid to do everything. You know,
I think, so I had group B strep with Chase, and then I tested positive again with Callan.
You know, my baby brain don't remember all of that stuff. I'm like,
well, you know, they test you like at 36 weeks for this like bacteria present in mom, and there's a chance if the baby could I don't know, like, get infected or something. Got it. So because I had it with Chase,
Okay.
I broke down the day I found out. I was positive with it with Callan because there was this, oh no, this is just like what happened with Chase. Does that mean after this baby turns 1 that we're going to
Okay,
there
so
was
there
a
was
lot
the
of
fear.
there was definitely fear then. And I remember, and that was obviously before Callan was born. Counseling, prayer. I think my counselor at the time said, Danielle, you're bracing yourself for something you don't know is going to happen. And he was like, you're doing this. Can you release that? Can you trust the Lord? And I guess the Lord helped me to be able to do that. Because by the time I did birth Callan, there were things that were similar with him and Chase. I mean, he looks very much similar to Chase. Like, if you put a hat on him, Chase had a huge forehead. Yeah. You put a hat on both of them, like their little faces are very, very similar. But I think that like having to work through the fear of the similarities of Group B strep pushed me to do some kind of work to go, you've got to separate, like these are not the same.
Right.
Just because you have similar experiences doesn't mean that everything is going to be identical. Exactly. Yeah. So stop bracing for this baby's life to end on day 375. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you finally get to a point where you're like, okay, I can't keep monitoring this 375, with this baby. So how do you go from I'm just taking care of myself and introducing wellness for this baby to where you are now, where you've kicked quarantine's ass and like you're here today to talk about wellness?
I think it was just a one day at a time kind of journey of practicing different things. I love to read, love to learn. So that got paired into the wellness area. So I started reading more books and like listening to podcasts. But was always trying to merge it with my faith. Like, is this sinful? Is this selfish? Is this something we can pursue? And so I think just in that journey, I just began to learn, this is actually part of God's design. Like he's given us so much goodness. Like there's so much wisdom he's given into our body. Yeah. The scriptures say like, love others as you love yourself. I'm like, how did I miss that? Like,
right.
How did I forget?
You're talking about like the self-care. Like, is this sinful? Like, so like you have to love others as you love yourself.
Yeah. Like how did I miss that I can't care for others well if I don't care for myself? Like there really is this level of dignity and like, I am made in the image of God. So I should there's a level of like, I should care for myself.
Right.
I don't have to ignore what I'm doing.
So why did we make, and I'm not going to say we, cause that's some of y'all, I'm not doing this, but why did we make like self-care and like yoga? So you're, you're friends with Lecrae, the artist. And I remember when you were doing a yoga class or something with him, and people were very upset that y'all were about to do the devil's work online together. You were going to do like a little class or whatever.
Yeah, they were messaging like, did Jesus do yoga? And like,
I don't know.
I'm like, I don't know. But I think that comes from like a fear of the unknown, I think. And in my own journey with yoga and stuff, I mean, I've been doing yoga since college. So, 17, 18 years. And in my studies of it, even taking that 200-hour class, actually studying more and even reading some of the ancient texts pushed me further into, no, this is a good thing for us to do.
And let me tell you something. 200 hours is a lot of hours. And I was recently looking at an interview, I think it was Charlamagne the God, and he was talking to somebody, and the guy was like, you know what I hate the most is when I do like 5 years worth of research to write a book, and then somebody gets on Twitter and tells me what I don't know what I'm talking about after Googling something. Like, yo, back up. Like, that doesn't mean she's all knowing and omnipotent, but like 200 hours of studying or actually giving your life over to something and being thoughtful about something gives you a place to speak from just somebody whose grandmother said that maybe you're tuning into something with Satan.
Yes.
And let me tell you something that just I feel, and I want you to speak into this. All this third eye and all this like weird, whatever reason we think this stuff is like weird. The Bible says like all things are ours. Like this is God's stuff. And I think when somebody taps into like the third eye or like breathing or whatever, this is already God's stuff. Somebody may have monopolized it and called it something else, but third eye, caught up in the third parallel, people understanding the things of God and seeing things in prophecy. Like, why are y'all big mad about things that belong to God that somebody else's name? So I would like to talk about some of that.
Yeah, like if I'm with you, if all truth is God's truth. So, okay, third eye. Literally, there is a part of the brain right behind that area that helps us grow in self-awareness. It's called the medial prefrontal cortex. Science matches with our faith. We don't have to be afraid of things.
Right.
So I don't have that fear of the unknown. It matches. Even the word chakra. People can be scared of that word. Like, no, that just aligns literally with like your endocrine system. So it's like God was teaching people in the past, and they learned and they created this tool and this gift that really all people can use. It really is like a tool for all people to use. I mean, I'm not gonna go on the whole like yoga teaching, but anyone can participate.
Yeah.
And that ancient practice is matching up with present science,
Right.
And even things in our own sacred text.
Yeah.
And they're not in opposition.
Right. You know, it's funny. Maybe I'm lying to myself. I'm not gonna say I'm not a very emotional person. I am, but like, as far as like, you know, I don't know, I don't overdo it, but when I go to hot yoga, that's the only time. Regular stagnant yoga is a struggle for me. Maybe you can help me. But like hot yoga, there's something about the heat where I have a wandering mind. And that, for some reason, that heat makes my mind go, you can't go over there. You guys stay here. You're going to pass out. But at the end of that, when I've been breathing, when I've been focusing on, it's mindfulness. It's staying in the present. And when I do that, I always, when they give you that little towel to put over your face with the lavender, I always cry. And I was just telling a friend that I think this is the only time, and I like the whole time I pray, like I'm sort of feel like the most connected to God, maybe because I'm struggling. But at the end, I always cry because I felt like this is the most like focused and prayerful I felt in all of my doing and all of my Christianing and all of my stuff. This is when I feel the most like present.
Yeah, I always say I think that yoga is a tool that we can use for our good and God's glory, because there is this connectedness. I mean, that's what yoga. I mean, real quick, yoga does come from a word that means to unite. So it's like when I mindfully breathe at a base level, like that's yoga. And so when I get in these spaces of calming my body, calming my mind, calming my breath, I am able to tune into this internal divine. I'm created in God's image and commune. I mean, it says in Psalms, be still, know that I am God. Like, I think doing the work sometimes of like stretching, working, letting the blood flow, getting the mind moving, that you are almost like primed to experience a little more of that like be still space.
Yeah. Okay. That makes total sense. Okay. So what about the me's? We let's do an angel devil thing. I'm not a devil. She's not an angel. But Danielle is my friend that I call, you know, when I'm always like struggling or I just can't find like quiet. I'm so overwhelmed with the doing and not the human being side of myself. How can I practice wellness? How can people practice wellness who are overwhelmed without it being like a practice? Like when people say I practice yoga, I think of people who, you know, they got their mat, those weird shoes, those expensive tights, and they're doing the damn thing. How can I just have a little bit of mindfulness, a little bit of fitness, and like practice some wellness in my life? Like, do you have any advice for us?
Yeah, I think that it is going to involve practice, but I think it's how you define practice. Okay. So again, if I go back to like wellness, is not just a state of being. It literally is like a fluid, moving thing. Okay. So your ability to be well is your ability to like fluidly move from different aspects of humanity, like to nervousness, to anxiety, and then come back to peace and stillness and safety, and then do it again. So the wellness, the movement piece is like how fast can you move back to that place of stillness and calm. And I used to say, I can think in years past before I thought about wellness as like a movement, like a state of moving. I would always say, man, I feel like I'm growing because I'm not sitting in my frustration as long as I used to. Like I was able to deal with the frustration or work through to forgiveness and then get back to like, okay, now I'm calmer. So I think if I think about wellness that way, then I can practice things in my home that help me get back to my safety and calm place without having to grab a mat or put on fancy clothes. So I literally can notice what I'm feeling in the moment and maybe I breathe. Maybe I say a prayer. And then that becomes the practice. Okay, I noticed when I'm nervous, my heart rate elevates. I'm going to decide beforehand. I'm going to resolve beforehand that when that happens, I'm going to breathe.
Yeah.
And then that becomes your practice.
Yeah.
So when my kids irritate me, before I react, or before I respond, I'm going to breathe for 1 minute. And that, as simple as that can be your wellness practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what if I'm still trying to like look good and fit into my jeans and be mindful and like be financially stable? Like
yes.
How has, because I'm watching you, I know you personally, I know your I know a lot about you. So like each part of your life, I know where there's wrestles.
Yeah. From
the financial to the marriage to the kids to, you know, losing us. I know a spectrum of your life. And I've seen you practice wellness in areas like there's times we do a lot of Marco Poloing, especially in like COVID. And there's times you're talking, I'm like, she's just figuring stuff out. Like I don't, and maybe I am too, but I don't give myself as much credit as you. But I'm like, you know, you're practicing wellness in your finances. You're practicing wellness in your marriage. Like you're working really hard, and that seems like it takes so much effort and time.
Yes,
Help
it does.
me.
Well, it was actually your husband that's helped me to realize I have a different story and a different capacity than other people. So let's not play the comparison game. We are different people.
It's true, but he's like her, so
yeah, it's true. I will admit I am not as empathetic as you are.
Okay, that's
so.
Okay.
And I do think, and even my husband, who is an empath, has said things in the past like, I wish I could just turn things off like you can, like almost as if like, well, Danielle's moving on to the next thing, and there's no struggle. I'm like, well, sometimes it is. Sometimes just like all right, I'm done with that, moving on, bedtime, whatever it is. I kind of joke because we had to take that Your Unique Design test years ago, and I was like 7% on the harmonizer.
And I was like, harmonizer.
I was like, I'm a tin man. I don't care about people.
You don't have a heart.
I don't have a heart. So I mean, I do.
Yeah.
But I think there really is like our capacities are different. So where I am probably more, it probably comes easier to me to be able to turn the thing off, say no, move on, because I'm not carrying all the things that an empath would carry.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are different there.
Yeah.
So I think there's a thing that comes easier for me.
Yeah. So we talk about a lot mom guilt, and I say, I don't know, I be thinking I'm hardcore, like just badass, no emotions in my spirit, but that's not really who I am.
No. Yeah.
I'm an empath, but when it comes to mom guilt, I think it has a myriad, like a lot of ways that it looks. And I notice sometimes, like, just for me to go out and walk or run, it takes me a lot of building up to go, you know what? I'm leaving these kids. My daughter's 12. I do have a 3-year-old. She is like the monkey wrench in there. But it takes a lot for me to leave the house.
Yeah.
Because there's a little bit of a guilt. Once I'm out there, I feel fantastic. I'm like, I should always be working out. But that's the kind of thing that I want to speak to, like women that are like, they're just struggling to have wellness because there's so much guilt around not being God, essentially.
Yeah, I think you get some people in your life that can be a voice of encouragement for you there. Like my mom is a really loud voice, and I think she's maybe another reason why I push so much to care for myself, because she's always saying, "Don't do what I did." Like she's always
give me an
saying,
example. What would you? How do you think she lived versus how she wants you to live?
Oh, she would never take time for herself. Like her day was, before my parents got divorced, she was concerned with like house, kids, her own job, and my dad, whether she was like ironing his clothes, or like helping him do stuff, get ready for work, making sure we were good with our, like getting us to band practice or whatever. She was constantly giving her effort and energy for everybody else except for her. So
has she ever verbalized like, and in that season I felt like,
yeah, I mean, she'll say like, I was so tired and I didn't rest. I would never stop and rest for myself. And I wish I did. So she's looking at me with like these, very high energy boys. And she's always telling me like, please take a rest, go sit down somewhere. And me and her are very similar because I think a lot of our productivity or a lot of our identity and value can be tied to productivity. I mean, even now we'll both kind of walk around the house sometimes like, I need something to do. I should be doing something.
Yeah.
And she might hear me sit down. She'll say, you need to go sit down. Now I might tell her the same thing and she's like, nah. She won't listen to it. But I think I needed that voice and that permission from my mom to tell me, yeah, it's okay to slow down. It's okay to go to the gym. It's okay to do these things that are going to help you be sane and be healthy.
Yeah.
So you can come back here and care for these kids. And you don't have to feel bad for that.
And you know what's interesting about that? Where I don't know where we got that we have to feel bad about it. And this is like, I hope this isn't too personal, but I think about your mom, for example, doing all of this stuff, ironing someone's clothes, and then you mentioned a divorce. But just as a side note, it's like, sometimes you can give and give and give and give. And then at the end, it's like, and for what? You know, my husband says all the time, like, I'm married to you. And I'm like, but these kids, he's like, you know, they're going to leave us one day. And we got to have some sort of, like, we got to have health, wellness, and energy to be married in like our twilight years. Because, you know, we don't want to have this 3-year-old. We're going to be like 80 by the time they get out the house. So, you know, you can't be 80. You got to be active and fit. So I think that it's just interesting, the concept of not giving some of your best to yourself when people can leave. All you are going to have in the end is your wellness, is your spiritual life, is your own emotional capacity, because you don't know what's at the end of this road.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that is it. We have to, excuse me, we just need that permission to care for self. Even like I think about old times, like back in the day, the reverse engineering was a big thing. Where you're like, what are the 7 things you're doing? Kind of reverse engineer your life. Like, okay, in the money area, you're going to be this. In the marriage area, you're going to be this. But I appreciate that he would say, the guy, Mark Driscoll was his thing. He would always say, don't forget to put a slot for yourself on there. Like he would always say, like, you can do 7 things well. So maybe you're a wife and a mom and a homeschooler, and like, you know, right there, those are 4 of the slots taken, because one of the slots has to be you being alive. And I appreciated that, because nowhere else had I really read that part of the priorities, relationship with God, it was always like God, husband, kids, church, but there was never like what about the relationship with yourself? And that's actually a really big part of wellness, I think, is knowing yourself, listening to yourself, letting yourself feel emotions, letting yourself, being aware of like, oh, when I'm nervous or when I'm anxious, my stomach does this. Like that has to be on the list of priorities.
And you know what's interesting, because you just gave this list, and so I'm thinking about who, like I say, Christians have a problem with self-care. I don't think that's true.
No.
Women have a problem with self-care, because I'm gonna be honest with you, like my husband may not have a big theology or theory or even a care about self-care, but he has no problem with prioritizing himself, and not even in a selfish way. If he needs to work out, he's going to work out. If he needs to go to the store right now, like there's just no guilt attached to that. And I'm starting to realize, the more I talk, I'm like, this is not a people struggle for the most part. This is a woman struggle. And so again, I'm like, what is it? And maybe it's a God complex, I don't know, but what is it about me that says I hold this all together? Now, part of me does think, and this isn't, again, I'm not speaking personally about my marriage, but I'm speaking in general, there has been this like thing of like patriarchy where you just said in order, you just said God, husband, wife, whatever. And so everybody gets what they need except for this one person. And if you're going to be this allegedly the person holding it all together, you need to learn to be okay with taking care of yourself. So I'm like, that I don't think men have a self-care problem. I don't know any of my men friends who don't work out. Like as far as like if they want to.
Yeah, no, one of my favorite books, and I'm always quoting to people, that book, Burnout. And in the book, they talk about, and it could be an American thing, but I'm guessing other countries deal with this, but speaking in broad generalizations, there are human beings and there are human givers. Givers. And so she says, like, guess who most often falls into the human givers? Like, so she says women struggle with human giver syndrome, because it's always like the women who are told to like give of their time, give of their energy. I mean, physically we give of our bodies to have and nurse a baby. I mean, all the things. And so we do exist in this world. We are like breathing in the odorless gas of patriarchy, which to me is, and then don't even add on to it like black women, like just this caste of society.
The caste system,
we have, I mean, that's why I call it survival.
That's
like
true.
Who else is caring for us?
I don't know them.
I mean,
I even think about when, I was having all this beef with my landlord before we bought this house, and she had did her former tenant wrong, who was a white man. And while I was over here gathering all this information so he can, and then I was like, no.
I'm not doing your work for you.
I need to go sit your ass down, Dawntoya. You can't take care of this man too. And like it like you said, it's just a natural thing where I feel like, well, if I have the capacity, if I have the information, I have to be the one that gives, does.
And that and this is new for me this year. I'm learning sometimes I might have the capacity, but that doesn't mean I have to make myself available for it. And you've heard me say that before. That's my new phrase. I learned it from Tracy.
Struggle.
It's hard. It's hard to set those boundaries. It's hard to say, no, I don't, like, that will not be a good use of my time, a good use of my mental energy. That takes a boldness and a courage that I am learning. I'm stepping into. And I feel like the Mossy Challenge, that was at the end of 2017. I don't know. I think expedited some of my wellness trajectory that I was on and helping me learn, okay, I'm going to learn how to be a little bit healthier in conflict in marriage and setting these boundaries or whatever it is. So I'm still going on that. And a big thing I'm realizing now is, I need to find my voice. I need to make my voice heard. And part of that is knowing how to say no and knowing how to admit what I am and am not available for.
So wellness for dummies. I think with wellness, you have to have, it sounds like, in order for you to be well, especially in this like created casteism, especially in like Christianity, especially with women, no matter where you fall on that, you have to first have a voice. I feel like, and you have to be okay with using it to say, okay, this is what wellness looks like for me, and these are the things I'm going to do to cultivate it, and then you have to have the ability to implement it. So for those people working, let's say we don't have time to teach you about how to get your voice. We just can't. Sorry. Maybe another show. But wellness for dummies. Okay. What are some things that you've learned in like this season of like all that you've learned, the classes and everything, and then just within yourself, she does a lot of reading, like put in a lot of hours of just, which is great. I mean, it's like literally when you were like kind of giving, like, I'll do the Dr. Caroline Leaf things, but like I ain't gonna remember the vocabulary words. Danielle will. So like you can go to her and she has studied up on this. It's that engineering, that Rice degree is always being put to use.
Yeah, don't ask me for a word picture though. That's your territory.
Hey, I have my own gifts. Yeah, I just don't know vocabulary words. But so for I would say wellness for dummies, what are some things that you learned that you were like, okay, ladies, men, you got to start with this. Very simple.
Yeah. Listening to yourself.
Okay.
So, I mean, pausing, listening to your body. I mean, like, okay, I'm noticing that my shoulders are tense, or I'm noticing.
As we speak, I'm like, okay.
Or I'm noticing that my, like when I pass by triggering images on like this is real, like on Instagram, notice what happens. And then sometimes it's just let it be. And then sometimes it's asking yourself, okay, what do I need? And I think that's another big part of finding your voice is putting voice to your needs. Okay. I had to practice that. Okay. I think we've all probably have our own story of like, I'm learning how to articulate my needs. Right now, I need 5 minutes of quiet, or I need 10 minutes of extra sleep or something, and not feeling, but I would feel bad for voicing my need. Yes. I don't know where that came from. Yes. Maybe patriarchy. Yeah. I don't know. But those are very significant yet realistic things that we can do if we're just starting off on a wellness journey, because we have to know where we are and we have to know what we need. Okay. So voicing our needs, and or even just being aware of where we are. Yeah. Like if I take that time to listen to my body, listen to my emotions, like how I'm feeling, that's like the first step in knowing how I got there. Like, why do I feel this way? But you have to know first what you feel. Yeah. So that's to me, a very practical and important
basic, like
first step.
Which sounds like simple, but it's just not true because we don't have a lot of time sometimes to stop.
That's right.
Pay attention.
And we don't live in a culture where we're given permission to do that. Like we don't live in a culture of processing. We live in a culture of suppression. Yeah. We live in a culture, and I will say from my own grief journey, I don't think the church has done this well. We have this like moving you out of hard spaces quickly. Oh, you're sad. It's going to be okay. Like there's this like, I'm going to like wash over your pain with this triumphant narrative. And that doesn't help anybody. And that's that toxic positivity.
Yes. Sorry, I'm screaming. I don't have to edit this down, but Danielle taught me a term, that positive toxicity.
Toxic positivity.
Okay. What should I say? Toxic positivity. And I've been telling people about it because it's so true. Just give me like a dab of that.
It's just where if someone is in a hard space, if someone's in a hard space, my chin was like on the mic. Okay. It's when you come up to them and go, it's going to be okay. Or at least, like, I lost my son. At least you could get pregnant. That's not helpful. But people do that, though. People do that. True. It's like, at least you were able to get pregnant, or at least you can get pregnant again. And that's not helpful at all. Like, what we need people to do is meet us in our sadness and our darkness and go, I love you. I'm praying for you. I don't have the words. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
But we're very uncomfortable with the pain of others.
Yes.
And because we are uncomfortable, we try to push them out of their discomfort because we can't handle it. And it's real, it's the whole thing. It's real selfish. I had to deal with a lot of it. It feels so unfair to the person who's grieving. Like, I got to deal with your discomfort.
Right.
It's so tiring.
Yes.
But yeah, that's, I mean, in a nutshell, that's toxic positivity. It's just too quickly rushing you out of your space
with
of
like
difficulty.
Positive language. Yeah. And it's not helpful at all.
At all.
And y'all, Christians be doing that. And that's bad English. But like, let's just stop doing that. And I know that you've always said, I think y'all need to write a book on like how to grieve and how to handle people with grief. And even beyond that, though, it's just like you need to be where you are. That's like a simple thing, but you need to be where you are. Whether you're dealing with like super grief or just like as a mom or whatever, be where you are. Yes. Learn to listen to yourself. So that's like base level 1. Yeah. Okay. And then, so what if you're a woman like me who's just afraid to move sometimes? It's like, everything's fine today. If I leave and go do something for myself, I'll be gone for 2 whole hours. Yeah. The world might fall apart. Right. What happened?
I would do some work with the mindset behind that. Like, because we know our thoughts drive so much stuff. So I would never want to encourage you to just like gloss over that, but actually take time to kind of locate, okay, I'm telling myself that when I'm not around, things go bad. Yeah. Or I have to be present for things to go well. And it's like, well, is that actually true? So I'd probably encourage you to what Dr. Caroline Leaf calls reconceptualize, but find like to reframe that in your mind so that you can exist and experience the freedom of the stepping away without the fear or without the like worst case scenario verbiage or conversation in your mind being so loud. And it's not about silencing it all the way. It's like, can we just turn that down a little bit and maybe turn the volume up on, no, your getting away will be good. Yeah. And it'll be good for them.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any, I hate that IGTV. This has to be an hour, but I have like 1,000 questions. So I'm trying to put a bow on it. But do you have any sort of like thing that you tell yourself when you're like not creating space for yourself? Is there anything, and maybe you don't do that anymore. You're like, I'm out of here. I'm on the road to freedom. I will have abs soon, coming soon to a gym near you. So, but for people like me that like, I can picture friends that are just like, I just can't even move. Yeah. Like, what do you tell yourself? What would be like the icing on the cake to get people to take wellness seriously? It's not just fitness. It's not just working out. It's a mindset that is going to span all of these areas of your life. Like, what would you tell us?
Yeah, I would say to believe that caring for yourself is a worthy and necessary investment so that you might be able to be and do all the things and be for all the people in your circle of influence. Because so often it's like, I want to be able to be this awesome mom and like be this kind of person for these people. And it's like, and in order to do that, there really is going to need to be you caring for yourself at some level. Yeah. Because you're going to break if you don't stop and care for yourself, even if it's just really like 5 minutes a day of breathing. Yeah. And then somehow in your mind resolving in there going, and that is a good and worthy pursuit. It is not sinful. Right. It is not selfish. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Finally, April 14th, you have something. Oh, yeah. Quickly tell us what it is.
I am hosting a free wellness experience for moms April 14th, 8 p.m. Yes. We're gonna have some teaching and conversation, and we're going to actually practice some of these things. We're going to breathe. Okay. We're going to stretch. We're going to practice mindfulness and hopefully rest and recover and restore.
And also you do yoga, like you do virtual classes.
Yeah, I teach 4 virtual classes a week, all different types of yoga. My most popular class, which I'm not surprised at, is my Saturday morning restorative class. Yeah. It's basically like collective nap time. It's fantastic. You get your pillows and your blankets. It's my most popular class, like by significant numbers.
Yes.
And you come and you breathe and you rest, and it's needed, and it's all women.
Okay, so give them your IG so that we can. Okay. This conversation just can't go on. Like, there's so much to learn, but you are teaching. You are literally teaching. So give us your Instagram.
I'm Danielle.L.Anderson.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I hate that we have to end it, but we do because I don't own Instagram, or I'd be rich and I would, be living the life. So I'd be fit. I'd have a nanny. It'd be fine. It'd be fine.
Bless God for nannies.
Yes. One day. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you for coming over late. I know it's past your bedtime.
No, I'm still good. I'm good.
Okay. So, all right. Thank you. And I hope you guys will join us next week for my final podcast of the season. I did it. Yay.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. All right. Bye, guys.